A fond and fitting farewell to Princess Diana with one of her favorite songs reworked just for her. An extremely sad day, especially for Princes William and Harry, the two sons she leaves behind. This morning, of course, millions from around the globe watching in London, paying last respects to the princess. Good morning. I'm Amy Caples.
And I'm Larry Kane. Welcome back to News 3's special coverage, Farewell to a Princess. In addition to the coverage from CBS News, the News 3's team is standing by right now at area locations for reaction and, of course, perspective.
Brandon Brooks is with diners and staff at Ponzio's on Route 70 in Cherry Hill this morning. Colette
Cassidy is standing by at the Flavor Britain in Wilmington, a store that's done something special to pay tribute to Diana this morning.
And in Society Hill, Dick Standish is at the Dickens Inn, long a haven for the British here in Philadelphia.
In a grand and extraordinary manner, Britain bid farewell to its princess this morning, a ceremony filled with splendor, tears, and some anger.
A million or more mourners seeing her off. Reporter Skip Loescher has the story of the moving, emotional tribute.
The last day's journey for Diana, Princess of Wales. It began at Kensington Palace, where she lived. At St. James Palace, Diana's beloved sons, 15-year-old William and 12-year-old Harry, their father and Diana's brother, joined the procession. And everywhere there were people, all the way to Westminster Abbey. People, young and old, from all over the world, there to pay their own tribute, to say a nearly silent but emotional goodbye. 107 minutes after it began, the procession arrived at Westminster Abbey, where 2,000 more had gathered. Personal friends, those who worked with Diana during charitable endeavors, and 100 or so chosen at random from the public. Representing the U.S., First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton. Attending to the parents of Dodi Fayed, the man with whom Diana said she had finally found happiness. There were tributes and readings from Earl Spencer, her brother.
Above all, we give thanks for the life of a woman. I'm so proud to be able to call my sister. The unique, the complex, the extraordinary and irreplaceable Diana, whose beauty, both internal and external, will never be extinguished from our minds.
And musically, from Elton John.
Violence rose, may you well grow in our hearts. You are the grace that placed yourselves where lives were torn apart.
There were no pictures of the royal family inside the Abbey. It asked that none be taken, and British television obliged. Following the funeral service, there was a nationwide minute of silence. The hearse now carrying Diana's body northwards toward the Spencer family estate in Northamptonshire, where she will be buried later today. Skip Loescher, CNN, London.
Of course, in addition to the people worldwide, people all over our region have been watching their television since early this morning, witnessing a solemn day in English and worldwide history.
Right now, News 3's Brandon Brooks is with some folks at Ponzio's restaurant in Cherry Hill, where they have been up and watching for hours. Good morning, Brandon.
Morning, Amy. Morning, Larry. You know, Ponzio's restaurant is kind of like the community's family breakfast table around here. And the talk around the table this morning was of the funeral for Princess Diana.
All the breakfasts are over here that you get.
The staff at Ponzio's is bustling about with their usual good cheer, serving up smiles with their coffee and eggs. But the smiles disappeared, and the staff members wiped away tears as they watched the funeral of Princess Diana every chance they got.
What a beautiful, kind, and loving woman she was.
Beverly Harris watched Diana's wedding some 16 years ago. Today, she watched Diana's funeral as the circle of life was closed.
You feel like maybe the cycle is completed, but in a way it's not completed. 16 years wasn't long enough for her to accomplish, I think, everything that she really wanted to do.
I really loved her, too. She was a great lady.
To Michelle Sylvester, Diana was one of us, and she liked the way we said goodbye.
I like the idea that they let the people be more involved, rather than all the royalty, and that they did make it as open as they did because it's the way she probably would have wanted it.
And men were moved as well by the farewell to a princess.
You have that empty feeling in you. Didn't know the person was 1,000 miles away, but it still leaves that empty feeling.
One waitress, a woman who had to work a 12-hour shift today, told me she got up at 2 o'clock this morning to watch the funeral procession for Princess Diana. And a man, a customer, as he was leaving, he said what respect she had and he just shook his head. And that sort of sums up the emotion here at Ponzio's in Cherry Hill. Reporting live, Brandon Brooks, News 3. We'll go back to the studio.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Of course, emotions were felt throughout the tri-state area today.
News 3's Colette Cassidy joins us live now from the Flavor of Britain shop down in Wilmington with reaction to this morning's funeral service. Good morning, Colette.
Good morning, Amy. Good morning, Larry. This is a British tea room in Wilmington, Delaware, owned by 2 British citizens. And since the death of Princess Diana, they have found themselves as a central point for some people in Delaware coming, looking for a place to pay tribute to Princess Diana and to honor her. This morning, the 2 owners got up, came to work early to watch the funeral of the Princess of Wales at the place where she once would have been crowned queen.
It's very difficult to really put into words what you do feel.
Janet and Christopher Day are British citizens who've lived in the United States for almost 18 years. They watched the funeral of Princess Diana in Wilmington, 3,000 miles away from home, but still felt the pain and loss of their country.
The whole of Britain, I should say, is just so quiet and so watching every moment and so desperately upset. When you watched the wedding and saw her and Charles, and it was the fairy story, and the whole thing's been so shattering, and then to end this way with the one person who meant more than anybody else, for her to die, just is so pointless.
Certainly echoing the sentiments of many people all this past week and this weekend, trying to come to terms with the tragic and sudden death of someone so young who was so photographed, so well known. Earl Spencer said today in Westminster Abbey at the funeral services that Princess Diana remained still insecure and never knew how much people loved her. It's been said before, it would certainly be comforting if she knew now how many people are remembering her and paying tribute to her. Reporting live in Wilmington, I'm Colette Cassidy. We'll go back to you in the studio.
Thanks a lot, Colette. And Earl Spencer's comments today, sometimes controversial and sometimes emotional, as he paid tribute to his sister.
He had very sharp words for the paparazzi and the news media during the eulogy in general. And he also did not hold back his thoughts on how Diana's sons should be raised in the future. Listen.
Fundamentally, she hadn't changed at all from the big sister who mothered me as a baby, fought with me at school, and endured those long train journeys between our parents' homes with me at weekends. It is a tribute to her level-headedness and strength that despite the most bizarre life imaginable after her childhood, she remained intact, true to herself. There is no doubt that she was looking for a new direction in her life at this time. She talked endlessly of getting away from England, mainly because of the treatment that she received at the hands of the newspapers. I don't think she ever understood why her genuinely good intentions were sneered at by the media, why there appeared to be a permanent quest on their behalf to bring her down. It is baffling. My own and only explanation is that genuine goodness is threatening to those at the opposite end of the moral spectrum. It is a point to remember that of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this: a girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age. She would want us today to pledge ourselves to protecting her beloved boys, William and Harry, from a similar fate. And I do this here, Diana, on your behalf. We will not allow them to suffer the anguish that used regularly to drive you to tearful despair. And beyond that, on behalf of your mother and sisters, I pledge that we, your blood family, will do all we can to continue the imaginative and loving way in which you are steering these 2 exceptional young men, so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly as you planned. We fully respect the heritage into which they have both been born, and will always respect and encourage them in their royal role. But we, like you, recognize the need for them to experience as many different aspects of life as possible, to arm them spiritually and emotionally for the years ahead. I know you would have expected nothing less from us.
Very interesting that during the service he brought up the point of how the children should be reared and raised in such a public forum like that. I think he was basically laying down the foundation for what could be a struggle for their minds and their hearts and how they should live.
Let's go live now to the newsroom. Our guest, Professor Hugh Ormsby Lennon from Villanova University. Any surprise to you, Professor, that Earl Spencer would seek such a public and emotional forum to really stake the claim on these two boys?
Well, it was surprising insofar as I don't think it's the kind of speech you expect to hear at a funeral. On the occasion of a funeral, you usually expect to hear perhaps less honest and more polite and meaningless words.
Wasn't he really doing the opposite of what he asked for by elevating the debate over their future to such a public forum with millions watching, keeping their problem in the public spotlight rather than doing it privately?
I think that's certainly the case. Also, I think if in the Queen's speech she was trying to bury the hatchet, it seemed to me that Earl Spencer was trying to bury the hatchet in some people.
All right, we'll be subject of some debate over the coming weeks and months in Great Britain, the reaction there.
And Professor, thanks for joining us. I personally, while watching, was kind of surprised that he brought it up in public. I also thought his attack on the media did not delineate or separate the paparazzi vulturism versus the real established media.
And we've seen that here right in the Philadelphia area. We had reporters covering a trial at the Criminal Justice Center here in Philadelphia earlier this week, and they were set upon by folks walking by as being paparazzi and were criticized.
I assure you, if you're interested about the media, that the people that were represented in Paris were not representative of the people we work with here.
Well, the entire royal family, Larry, including Queen Elizabeth, took to the streets of London earlier today to pay their respects to Princess Diana before the funeral began. In an unprecedented gesture, the Queen left Buckingham Palace and bowed, as you see there, to Diana's horse-drawn casket as it moved slowly toward Westminster Abbey. Within minutes, the Queen arrived at the historic shrine.
With the very popular Queen Mother as well, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, and her son, Prince Edward, in the backdrop there.
And she walked up very slowly to the strains of Pachelbel's Canon in D. And I have to tell you, Larry, that this, as I'm listening to it from another room, and I walked back in, when I heard that Queen Elizabeth had arrived, I was stopped in my tracks because I hearkened back to that early morning 16 years ago when I had graduated from high school and was about to start college. And I was set my alarm for 4 a.m. to watch this entire funeral. And Diana walked down the aisle to get married to Pachelbel's Canon in D, setting off legions of women, including myself, throughout the world, who said, I'm going to walk down the aisle to that song, and I did. And I was wondering, did Elizabeth have any thinking back to that one day, that happy day, 16 years ago, when she walked down that aisle to that same song?
So you were married to that song as well?
Yes, I was. And coming from a small town where you never heard any bride come down the aisle other than to Here Comes the Bride, she kind of opened up this whole very classic and very wonderful way to present yourself to your husband, and it was beautiful.
I'm sure that everyone involved with that ceremony so many years ago had to be reminded of that, including Prince Charles himself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We'll be back with News 3 special coverage, Farewell to a Princess. We'll be returning in just a moment.
Stay with us.
Quite a scene in Great Britain today, an outpouring of emotion for Princess Diana. All those flowers today, Amy.
That was, I think, one of the most memorable pictures was in the newspaper just yesterday of that sea of flowers surrounding Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace. Amazing, 5 feet deep in some areas. It truly took your breath away. And I believe we have some video of all of these many, many flowers. Arrangements dedicated to Diana illustrated just how close they fell to her princess, standing in line in some cases for hours to drop off these flowers. And here in our area, countless floral memorials were put on display for Princess Diana as well. Obviously, these are still pictures from London.
That, of course, is in front of the gates, the famous gates to Buckingham Palace. And it impressed me, too, all the messages that were left there. And here we are back in our region where there are many, many, many messages on the roadsides. Union Jack flying on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, pictures of her, messages, many cards, the Queen of Hearts, Diana, Princess of Wales, 1961, 1997.
And I think, we saw this over and over again in some of the pictures from this morning, but I saw this for the first time a few days ago, a child holding a bouquet of flowers with the simple Queen of Hearts from a deck of cards. And that spoke volumes because, as we all knew from Diana's BBC interview from last year, that's what she wanted to be, the princess of people's hearts.
Of course, the British did a great job today in remembering the fact that there were two other people who were killed in that crash. One of them was Dodi Fayed, Princess Di's companion, who, of course, had that fatal final dinner with her at the Ritz Hotel, then got into the car, and the accident occurred. Dodi Fayed was buried shortly after the crash, and his parents were at today's funeral. Right now, Dick Standish is standing by live at the Dickens Inn in Society Hill. Dick?
Good morning, Dick.
Morning, Larry. Amy, following up on what Amy was saying right out of the condolence book. Diana, Queen of Hearts, your thoughtfulness, your compassion, your heart of gold will be greatly missed. One of the many, many comments recorded this morning. People here watched very closely. They focused on the two young men. They seemed to respond the most to the remarks of her brother.
I was very impressed, and I feel that Harry, Prince Harry, and Prince William are under very good guardianship there, and I think it's going to. I think Diana's spirit will live on through those children.
Now, her brother vowed, I guess you might say, that they'll put up some kind of a shield against the publicity, the paparazzi. Do you think, in your heart, that that can be done?
I think it can be done because of the tremendous feeling of tragedy and grief over this, that the English people themselves will prevent this from happening.
The one way he can do that is to bring it to public attention. Perhaps if the media is harassing them or following them the way they did, their mother, then that would be one way. Physically doing it, I think, is an entirely different story. They're in England with Charles and the royals, and he's not there, so.
But make a public statement, and perhaps now, after the tragedy, maybe they would back off.
Yes. And in addition to that, get the people, aware of that, and perhaps they can take up the cause also, because I think everyone is a bit outraged over, how she unfortunately died.
The memorial candle burning next to her image here at the Dickens Inn. The Book of Condolences will be taken from Philadelphia tomorrow morning by the owner of the inn to London, delivered to the palace directly. That's a story live from Head House Square. The reaction here, we'll go back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Dick. We have this programming note. CBS will bring you coverage of the U.S. Open coming up in just a few minutes this morning. We want to conclude our broadcast here with one of the very poignant moments from Princess Diana's funeral this morning.
Elton John, friend of the princess, sings a special rendition of a song he made immortal back in 1973, Candle in the Wind.
Goodbye, England's rose. May you ever grow in our hearts. You are the grace that placed yourselves where lives were torn apart. You called out to our country, and you whispered to those in pain. Now you belong to heaven, and the stars spell out your name. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. Your candles burned out long before your legend ever will. Loveliness we've lost, those empty days without your smile. This torch we'll always carry for our nation's golden child. Even though we try, the truth brings us to tears. All our words cannot express the joy you brought us through the years. And it seems to me you've lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. Your candles burned out long before your legend ever will.